All right, this is One Last Midnight. Welcome back to another episode of Farthest Frontier. Last night, Create Entertainment released a new version of Farthest Frontier 0.7.5 with a ton of changes, an absolute ton of changes. Some of the major changes include a new map called Idyllic Valley. It's a bountiful map. It's got a ton of resources on it, and it's geared more towards a relaxed play style, or for the new players. So, something you don't have to worry about resources, and it's just an optimal place to start building. The world generation has been rebalanced, so there are new, larger resource deposits and new, actually mega rocks. I mean, look at this freaking thing, 1,200 stone, which is amazing because stone is a huge problem in the game, especially towards later in the game, and you're having to go out really far to find stone. Unfortunately, these are not retroactive. That means you have to start a brand new map in order to have these changes take effect. But if you can see, like some of the sand resources, 4,000 for a sand resource. I mean, these aren't uncommon to find in other maps, but they're a lot easier to find on this map. A decent sized clay deposit, 17,000 for that clay deposit. That's huge. And there we got some ore over here, 5,000, 2,000. So, I mean, not bad, right? It's nice to have a map where you've got a lot of resources and you're not worried about end game, and have a bunch of resources available to you to create your production lines and be able to trade. There is now a new trader notification that comes up when traders come into town, which was a big problem before because you never really knew when the trader came in. But now you get this nice little notification letting you know that the trader has arrived. The changes to the game are pretty significant, and I've included a link in the description below that takes you to the location of the patch notes. Some of those changes are greatly significant, like the memory leak with reloading or restarting of games or re-rolling of the maps has been fixed. They also removed this legacy grass code, this rendering code, to improve the CPU and RAM utilization. They fixed a rare issue with some saves couldn't be reloaded again, and many more tech-related issues that were resolved. There were some big changes to the barn. There was a lot of problems with the barn. Setting the grazing issue has been fixed. The herd population control has now been fixed. The new cow bursts have now been fixed. I mean, there was just all kinds of problems with the barn, and they would happen over time, so maybe you wouldn't notice them, but if you set the herd size to be a specific herd size, they wouldn't be slaughtered, or the burst would be wrong, or, I mean, the barn was a hot mess. So it seems like a lot of those issues have been resolved. There were a lot of changes to crop fields. Fixed some issues where the farmers would prioritize apiaries over buildings and maintenance and plants and harvesting and stuff like that. So great. They're no longer worried about the bees. They're worried about the food, which is nice. Fixed an issue when assigning farmers to crop fields. There used to be like a defect where you would get too many farmers assigned to your crop fields, and it would just be crazy. It would be a crazy number that would be assigned to them, and now that seems to be resolved. They fixed an issue where clover can be used to maximize the fertility of the field. I don't know about that exploit, but I hope they're not talking about just doing something like this, like clover, every single season. We'll see. And they also fixed the issue where farmers were not able to access the crop storage and would wind up losing a bunch of harvests. So that's really nice to be able to get your food out of the farm. I mean, there was a lot of fixes to the crop fields as well, so make sure that you read those over. As for the game overall, there was a huge bunch of changes. Like, they increased the frequency of the traveling merchant per year, so you'll see more traveling merchants, which is nice because I didn't think there was enough traveling merchants. They typically only came in spring and then never came ever again, which is kind of ridiculous. You would think you would have them come at least twice a year, once in spring, once in fall, and that never just happened, but hopefully this fixes the problem. Builders now have hand carts to significantly carry more stuff to be able to build more efficiently. Villagers will now always consider the temporary shelter. So if you happen to have a resource that you're mining that's very far away, I put down a temporary shelter over here and wound up getting rid of it because they would just never use it. So now they're going to start looking at temporary shelters to be able to use that instead of running back home. There was an increase to the population requirement for the town center. So tier 3 and tier 4 to 150 and 300. So getting up to tier 3 is going to be 150. Getting up to 4 is going to be 300 people. Reduce the respawn rate of the Wolf's Den, but it's not retroactive. You're going to need to start a new map for that. And several other additional changes. Make sure you look over the game section to see things that might affect your current game. Some changes to the building section. Apiaries now require you to have at least 1 crop field before they're down. The charcoal kiln can now have up to 4 workers. The Cooper building is now a tier 3 requirement, which is kind of an ouch. Healer in the hospital now stocks soap. And they reduced the monthly upkeep of the healer in the hospital, which is great because that was way too expensive. And there was several other changes that were made into the building area. In the resource section, they made some changes to the resource costs, like they adjust some building costs for logs and planks, significantly increased the size of mineral deposits, but again, that's not retroactive. They adjusted the regrowth rate of the tree resource, which is huge because there never seemed to be enough trees to begin with. And now that seems to have been resolved. So now that their trees will grow a little bit faster. And of course, the Mega Rot, which we talked about. They also made some changes to raiders, and it just so happens I'm having an attack right now. The raiders are now less likely to attack brickyards. The reduced damage to certain raiders and improved damage bonus of weapons of soldiers to raiders as well. So a lot of exciting changes in this version of Farthest Frontier. Can't wait to get involved in playing it and see how significantly it changes my gameplay. But I'm really happy the developer came out not only with an update relatively quickly to their early access release, but also a huge update. Well, that's it for this video. Be sure to stay tuned for more Farthest Frontier information and videos. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Would love to have you in the community. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can find the links in the description below. And make sure to hit that notification bell. That way you know when I go live and when I post new videos. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.